Welcome back to the Modern Super League. I am your new co-commentator, Mikey Bashara, also known as Young Dingo, and joined with me now is Mr. Fervent Champion himself, Javier Dominguez. Javier, why'd you bring Hammer? Why'd you
Well,
do it?
so you think it sucks?
Oh
Is
no,
it?
I don't think it sucks. I just think that your sideboard was so hateful. I'm surprised I even got that game with the top deck Blood Moon. But man, your sideboard had like 4 Sanctifiers, 3 copies of Surge in the 75. I was scared for my life, Javier.
Yeah, I mean, for starters, I think Hammer is kind of an underrated deck in Modern. Like, I think it's actually a very powerful deck that got hated out at some point. Like so many Force of Vigors around. So I felt like
Mhm,
I will not face too much hate in this spot. And I
mhm.
expected like probably 1 to 2 Murtide or Rakdos Evoke scam players. And I think
Right.
Hammer with the sideboard actually becomes pretty decent against those decks, even though obviously you smashed me in these games, so maybe not.
I got lucky. I got so lucky. But are
So
you
yeah.
worried about Jim Davis on the Yawgmoth matchup? Because I think historically Yawgmoth is pretty good against Hammer. What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's not as bad as it looks. Like I think like the narrative of Hammer being destroyed by Yawgmoth is actually not my experience. Both from more actually from Yawgmoth's side. Like when I tested Yawgmoth, I was like, why am I losing so much against Hammer? Obviously not losing a lot, but I felt like it's a fine matchup. And also, I was not sure Jim would play Yawgmoth because Yawgmoth. I mean, he actually said that, right? Like Yawgmoth didn't go well in the tournament. I know most of their team actually was not. They were not happy about the Yawgmoth deck. So I was like, they're probably maybe not playing Yawgmoth, but they might think I'm playing Tron. So like that's that's why I went like that. I went that way. What about you? What did you play?
I ended up picking up Scam instead of like trying to metagame something different. I figured you guys would expect me on Scam, but that's okay. As the deck I feel the most comfortable with, I felt even if you guys teched for me, I had the most reps in it. So I was like, I'm just gonna go with my tried and true, send it, and then if it doesn't work out, I'll swap decks for week 2, 3, whatever in the future. But it looks like we have our next match coming up,
Yeah.
which is going to be Jim Davis versus Mason Clark. Mason Clark has brought creativity today. He mentioned a little bit earlier that he expected people to figure that he was going to be either on 4-color because that's what he was known for prior, or Scam because he had just done really well at the Apex event with Scam. And he was like, I'm going to metagame a little bit and take creativity because he expected me to be on Scam. And creativity, I think, is a little bit favored in the Scam matchup. So we're going to see him on creativity. And if we swap over to Jim, we're going to see him on Yawgmoth. This looks very similar to the list that he took to the Pro Tour with Spike and Reed Duke, I believe. Were they on the same team, Javier?
Yeah, I think also Jacob and yeah, some of the players. I think there were like a group of 5, 6 players that played this deck. It's a very similar one. I think almost the same. It's almost the same deck list. It has Break the Ice on the sideboard, which I assume were targeted for Tron players that might happen to be
Ooh.
playing in the pod. Uh, I
Yeah, I
think
kind of figured you'd be on Tron, so I like teched out some Blood Moons in the sideboard. Ended up coming in against the Hammer matchup too, but I figured that you were going to be on Tron after the Pro Tour performance. But I heard you didn't like it too much. Is that true?
Yeah, it's also like I wasn't scared of specifically this type of cards. That are like only I was not that scared of Blood Moons or whatever, but I was scared of like these Break the Ice type of cards because I think they are actually very good against Tron strategies. But yeah, a Yawgmoth, I mean, let's see how it goes. It definitely,
Yeah, I
it's
think
scary
we're
for
ready
Hammer.
to
So
head. Okay, sounds good. All right, so we got a little bit of time before the match, and as soon as the match is ready, we're gonna send it over. All right, send it. Alrighty, Jim Davis versus Mason Clark. It seems that I can't tell who's on the play.
well, Jim Davis is you can tell because it's a light screen. You see this one
Oh,
side
right,
of
right,
the
right, right.
table.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We see a mulligan to 5 from Mason. Oof.
Okay. We're on
I
6
mean, it's a
though,
good
making up
mulligan to
the
5.
mulligans. That's what Grand does.
Oh yeah, +1 draw a card. Pretty
Yeah.
powerful at undoing the mulligans here. Just a turn 1 Young Wolf from the side of Jim. Nothing spectacular.
However, like this run 6 is not gonna survive, right? Because the orcs are gonna attack for 3 with a creature. That might actually hurt Mason a lot, right?
Yeah, we'll see if he decides to
Ooh.
deploy the Orc, but instead decides to go with the Wall of Roots into the second Young Wolf here, just putting a little bit of pressure on this upcoming Ren and 6. Starts at 4 loyalty. I imagine we don't see a downtick on either of the Young Wolves because they will just come back even more powerful. So probably just going to pick up a land here for Mason and look to deploy that Fable pretty soon.
Yeah, there's a classic situation where when you see a player's cards, it's easy to see like, yeah, this is the play, right? But playing the game, you don't know what's your opponent hand. So actually, it makes sense that Jim is trying to develop here, so he can just deploy Yawgmoth. Like if he draws a Yawgmoth now, the game is gonna be about over. Even though
Oh, yeah.
specifically against Krang, like the orcs are better or something, but
Very hard to deploy a creativity for X equals anything against Yawgmoth. Those 1/1s get pinged down very
yeah.
easily from the Dwarven mines. And just an ignoble hierarch off the top. Maybe we see that and an attack with Exalted at the Ren and 6, and maybe a Bowmaster on Mason Clark's turn. But I don't think anything spectacular on the side of Jim Davis right now.
Yeah, I mean, Jim's position now is pretty much air. Like he really needs to draw like Court of Calling, the
Eldritch
Yawgmoth copies, Yawgmoth
Evolution.
effects. Yeah, anything else is not going to matter much at this point. And Mason actually has enough lands that creativity will probably close the game. What I'm gonna see, I guess, is maybe Jim can hold the orc, just trying to kill one of the doors. Because if you draw another copy, you can maybe kill a Fable or another of the 2 dormant mind tokens. But
Oh, absolutely. But as of right now, we can't kill that 2/2 Goblin Shaman on the side of Mason Clark, which is going to start making treasure tokens, which are uncounterable on the side of or untargetable on the side of Yawgmoth, which means that's a guaranteed creativity target in the late game, Javier.
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, probably the next draw step from Jim's is gonna define this game a lot. Like if it's a big card, like a Yamath effect, there's gonna be like not Christmas Land, but almost like it's gonna be a great position for him because Mason kind of. I mean, he might even play around that by holding the mana. But if he draws like a land here, chances are not very good for him, I will say.
Yeah, Jim definitely needs a little bit of help here, but it's still no creativity in Mason's hand, but we do get the draw to discard two. Maybe not, though. The Bowmaster does have something to say about the looting effect from Fable, because if Mason decides to loot, then he's going to lose that Goblin Shaman with the 2 triggers of Orcish Bowmaster.
Well, I'm not sure. Like, well, you could argue like here, Mason maybe it's not in a rush to cast the Fable. Like he could just also hold the mana. I guess he's just being like, if Jim draws a Yawgmoth here, I'm just losing to it.
I'm
That's
dead.
fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
I'm
if
going
he
to
has
lose
like
anyways.
orcs, yeah, exactly. I think that's. I mean, it's fair, right? Like, you're going to draw mulligan to 5, and maybe you can outplay around that. So this way, he's saying like, okay, if you don't deploy Yamath this turn, I'm just gonna, be miles ahead because even if against the orcs he has the bolt,
Yeah,
and
he's going
yeah,
to
I
have to
mean,
bolt in response to the Fable trigger if he wants to get the loot successfully.
yeah, we'll see. Jim is thinking of the turn, but I think he probably just needs to fetch and that's it. I mean, because drawing another Bowmasters is an actual decent draw for him now because he could kill the goblin and then kill the ground six, which is an okay spot.
Yeah,
Okay,
decides to do nothing, draws a land. That's pretty brutal.
for him. Yeah.
Yeah, that's he's very far behind now. Just sends in with the 3 young wolves at red and 6, I imagine.
Yeah, well, this is tricky for Mason, right? Because if he blocks, then he loses the goblin to orcs, which is actually relevant
Very
because the
heads
treasure
up
is
play.
yeah, like you said, that's true. Treasure is the only way where you can actually like easily have a way to creativity through Yamath, and now he just loses it, right?
1 damage to the Goblin Shaman, taking it down.
That's
Red and 6 at 1
enough.
loyalty. Leyline Binding and Lightning Bolt in hand. One of these is probably going to get pointed at the Orc during upkeep or main phase with the Fable trigger on the stack to ensure that the looting goes out without a hitch. Boop.
Yeah.
Bolt. Zap. Get out of here, archers. You're not welcome.
Well, that's not a very good draw. Like there's two more lands, so let's see what Mason draws after two more lands not discarded. That's Winnow's effect, right? Sometimes you're playing mid game and it's all lands.
Well, we see a couple of cards picked up for Mason that are not great in this matchup. Spell Pierce might be able to tag a Quarter Calling if Jim ends up tapping out for the full price of Quarter Calling. Reprieve can buy a little bit of time, but with so much mana acceleration on the side of Jim, maybe Reprieve doesn't do anything at all.
Yeah, they're definitely not the cards Mason was hoping to draw. They're probably better than lands, but I'm not even sure. Like Fetchlands could probably be better here because at least the Dormamine tokens can maybe do something. But at this point, it seems like this is going to be a race, right? Race against creativity versus Yawgmoth effects, I would say.
Yeah, Mason really needs to draw creativity, and every turn he doesn't, it's just giving Jim the opportunity to windmill slam a Yawgmoth and probably just win the game on the spot.
Yeah, I
Even
guess
through
there's a
that Leyline
world.
Binding.
Yeah, there's a world where maybe Mason can actually creativity after the Yawgmoth. Like Yawgmoth can draw some cards, but if you're not minding it, maybe it's not enough to win the game. We'll see. It could be interesting if Jim draws Yawgmoth now and then Mason draws creativity the turn after.
Grist
Grist.
is the pickup. That's not a bad one. I mean, he could down tick it to kill the Ren and 6 immediately, but you're probably just saving it for the backside of the Fable. So maybe you just play it this turn and tick it up.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, here we're gonna see Mason cash in the reprieve, I will say.
So yeah, cycle the Reprieve. He doesn't know that Jim has another land in hand, so with the power of Wall of Roots plus Ignoble Mana plus the land in hand, we could see a redeployment of the Grist here.
I mean, Jim may be thinking about Mason may be thinking about like if he could have another spell, but probably like any spell Jim had, he will have casted last turn, I guess. He's certainly not holding like a Yawgmoth or something. So
Yeah, you can probably deduce it might be like a Boseiju or some sort of utility land
yeah, it
off the
could
side
be.
of Jim.
Yeah, that could be. Anyway, he's tapping like this just in case he's wrong, and he doesn't want to lose to like Eldritch Evolution, land Eldritch like I guess not Evolution, but like Code of Calling precisely.
Right.
Let's say but Code of Calling for no, he actually cannot cast Code of Calling, so maybe he could have tapped the blue. I guess it's free to fetch to fetch the Dormant Mine, right? Like
Yeah,
if
it's kind of
for some
free.
reason you mess up and you can cast a spell pierce and you just didn't fetch before, it's so bad that it's just kind of free to do so.
A little bit curious to see if Jim wants to redeploy the Grist out here. I
Probably, I think
imagine,
Jim is trying to win the game by attacking at this point. I'm
yeah.
not even sure if he's attacking. He's probably attacking face, most likely.
Brandon 6 is still a little bit of a threat just because it's annoying at pinging down the 1/1s, but maybe you want to go face and just try to get Mason dead before he does draw the namesake creativity.
Maybe I'm not sure who's attacking, but no, he killed Grand and went to 11. Yeah.
Makes sense. And we'll see the
No, yeah, it's
redeployment of the
perfectly
Grist.
reasonable. Yeah, absolutely. But attacking face here was an option also. I think this is better, but you could be like, I put them on 9 and then I have like 5 attackers. So suddenly they're 9.5 of attackers, so it's two turn clock.
But
Can
yeah,
actually
the mana base out of the side of creativity is not free. It is a lot of fetching and shocking being done over
yeah.
there. So
All the
clogging him is a
tablets
very
and
real win
fetchlands.
condition.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Yawgmoth is Yawgmoth is not a great deck at winning games by attacking, but it has enough. All these wolves are, they can team up. This 4 damage a turn. We'll see now. And also Grist on 5 mana. That can actually matter against creativity in a way where sometimes, you can ultimate. We'll see. Things not
Yeah.
looking well for Mason, I will say.
There's only one creature in the graveyard right now, but maybe as that number grows, the Grist ult becomes a real threat as well. Archon off the top from Mason. Not really going to do anything right now. Would prefer that one to be back in the deck so it can get creativity. Maybe we see the Leyline Binding come down on the Grist to just stem the bleeding a little bit. But maybe Mason's thinking, oh, I should save that for Yawgmoth because that is Jim's win condition at this point.
It's tricky. Like the way I see it, I think Mason is losing to the board, so he probably needs to kill the Grist right now. Like I think
I
playing
agree.
around Yawgmoth is a luxury he cannot afford anymore. But
Yeah,
like,
he's probably deciding if he wants to play to win versus like play to survive. And at this
uh,
point, it feels like you just need to not hedge around Yawgmoth and just fire off the Leyline Binding now, and we see Mason agree.
Yeah, it's just like Fable of Limit Breaker here. It's a 2/2. Even if he had no abilities, it's actually a decently sized blocker. And
Oh
if you don't
yeah.
kill the Grease, Fable is gonna die. So might as well just save the Fable also. Yeah, 2/2. Big creature. Well, you destroyed me with it, so it's good. It was very good for you in our match.
Yeah, it was very good in my match. It was incredible just being able to like draw a step, grief you, make sure you didn't top deck any artifact, and then have a
Maybe I should
flawless
have thought
combat on my
this.
side.
Do you think I should have thought it? I was between Fable and Voidwalker. I was scared of Voidwalker just doing too much damage because the hand was low. But I don't know if.
Yeah, I didn't know what your hand was at the time, but I imagine that the Voidwalker was probably gonna deal too much damage to you if you didn't take it.
Yeah, but also Fable. Yeah, it was like I'm gonna either to lose to either Voidwalker or Fable. So you also had 2 lands. So I was like, well,
Mhm.
there's also a chance I get the Voidwalker and he doesn't draw the land.
Yeah, that
Okay,
makes
but
sense.
yeah, I struggled a little bit, but I don't know. I was like, I'm gonna ask him later. So you think Voidwalker or Fable was a better take?
I honestly I thought you were gonna take Fury, but I wasn't sure if you had like a creature light hand or like a super creature dense hand that was just gonna go over the top of Fury. So I was holding on to the Fury for dear life, like please don't take this. And then you took the Voidwalker, and I was like, oh okay. I imagine this Fury's not gonna affect you too badly, and it didn't because you made huge constructs.
Yeah, Fury. I mean, obviously Fury is like the best card or whatever in a vacuum, but like my hand was like his only sagas and lands. Like I'm mulligan into a
Oh yeah,
heavy
I
heavy
think
hand.
I think it was a good choice. And we see Mason, or sorry, Jim rather, Besageing Leyline Binding on the side of Mason and getting back the Grist. Probably gonna see Takedown kill the Reflection.
Yeah, but that's dangerous in a way because this Posseidon ramping actually now Mason is not that far from actually casting the Archon. Well, so we'll see. Some damage in that's a 2-turn clock here.
And we
Oh,
see a trade taking
blocks.
place. That means if Mason top decks a creativity, he's gonna have creativity for one
For one
less.
only. Yeah, that's well, that saves him 1 turn though. In the other hand, like now he has one more turn to actually like play the Archon. I think he's
Hardcast
trying to win with the
Archon.
Archon now.
Oh yeah, he's trying to hardcast this Archon for
Yeah,
sure.
like
Leyline
now
Binding
if
is a
like
pretty good
he
pickup
kills
too.
the. It's a plan, right?
It's not the best plan, but it's a plan because he cannot find this creativity.
But I mean, if you go with this plan, which I actually think is the best play, you can just kill the Grease with the binding, so you can actually like make it so Jim doesn't have an answer to Archon because the issue is Grease can actually answer the Archon. That's problematic.
Do you think there was any merit to going main phase Leyline Binding on the Grist so that way this Grist doesn't get to tick up this turn?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you do that and Jim draws like a forest or whatever, then you can just block, take some damage, go to 4, and just next turn get another mine and play the Archon and pray that's good enough, which it might be actually. Like Archon is large against life, and we'll see. So Takenuma, does Takenuma change things? Well, Takenuma gets the orcs.
Yeah, it gets back the Orcs.
So,
He can cast it with the Wall of Roots, but he would have to lose the Wall of Roots for it.
yeah, that's interesting. That's very
Yeah,
interesting.
you probably get it back and cast it on Mason's turn here.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, you can just main phase Takenuma and then get the orc.
Yeah, the +2 mana from the Wall of Roots being activatable on both your turn and your opponent's turn being super relevant here. That's why it's one of the best mana dorks in Yawgmoth.
I think maybe we're going to see Leyland Binding on the Wolf, 2/2 Wolf. That's a
Yeah, I
reason to
think
not play main phase.
this is like a little bit weird to me because now the Grist is going to be able to take out the Archon.
Yes, that is true. But I think a reason to do this is the life total preservation here.
Mm-hmm.
But well, it's definitely worse against specifically Takenuma because now he's gonna lose life when he draws a card over the Archon, and he also
He's
will
got to
lose the token.
fetch.
Yeah,
Probably fetches for a Dwarven Mine, loses the token to the Bowmaster. Maybe Jim just decides to go upstairs with the Bowmaster.
I think we'll kill the token, right? Because 1 damage you can always attack to it through it. But that's we'll see. I think we're gonna see one more turn at least because 6, 5. Yeah, he doesn't have lethal, I think, unless he draws something else. So we'll see.
So it goes back up to 6 from the Archon trigger. 1 damage
Boom,
to the Dwarf
Archon.
token minus the Grist. It's going to be close.
It's gonna be close. It's gonna. So I think Jim is going to be a 5. I'm sorry, Mason's gonna be in 5 life, and we're gonna have 5 power in the battlefield.
Yeah, the Young
So
Wolf
I know
plus the
more even.
2/2.
No, this is just
6.
lethal, I think.
Yeah, 6 damage. And then the Grist minus on the other
Yeah,
Young Wolf brings it back. And that's
yeah,
lethal
this is
for
lethal. Well,
Jim.
also Code of Calling.
And
Yeah.
Quarter Calling for the extra rubbins off the top might as well. And we see Mason pack it into that
It was
onto the
they had
sideboard.
this game had some decision that was interesting. Even though obviously like Mason didn't get the creativity cards, but he had some options. It was good. Let's see the sideboarding. Uh, things are
Yeah.
probably getting better for Yawgmoth, right? That's usually the case in this kind of matchups.
Yeah, do you think Jim brings in the Force of Vigors for Leyline Binding and Fable?
Wow, I'm not sure. I think at least one copy, yes. Like I think binding is such a is the only clean answer Mason has for Yawgmoth. So I think some sequences like playing Yawgmoth, he plays binding, and then in response to creativity, a Force of Vigor, unlock Yawgmoth and kill your tokens. I think that's powerful enough that I think at least one of them should be put, probably two potentially. Yeah, I think that's maybe one just because of Teferi and the such.
Yeah, I think Haywire Might is a little bit more flexible as well. It's kind of like an additional creature plus Force of Vigor style effect that you probably want in for sure in this matchup. But I think I would at least bring in like one of the Force of Vigors, like you mentioned. And then on the side of Mason, we could have 2 copies of Celestial Purge and a Veil of Summer coming in. Do you like Veil of Summer in the Yawgmoth matchup?
I don't think it's great, but it's probably totally fine. Like it just does let you combo. Like if you have like 7 mana, you can go with creativity for 2, and then first Veil of Summer or whatever, and then just creativity for 2, right? Like is that how it
Yeah.
works? Like with the Grist also, like you can combo and Grist, but probably not very good. 2 thoughts is only yeah.
I think the Veil of Summer is a little bit narrow as well. I'm not sure it's going to be great here,
Like
but it is good against Grist.
it's only good if you can cast it in response to Yawgmoth getting into play, right? Like you
Yeah,
cannot
or
do it with Yawgmoth.
I guess it does stop a Bowmaster trigger, albeit a little bit narrow.
That's a little bit narrow. It also doesn't stop the kill with Soloporku Throat. Yeah, I'm thinking
Yeah,
about it, but I don't think there's. I'm basically getting thoughts this is great, but the issue also is well, Summer is not great. I agree here, but the Fairy Time Raveler is pretty bad. you
yeah,
know,
Teferi's not good at all.
like maybe well, Summer is not very good, but it's a card you can sometimes cycle, and it can give you like a very good 2 for 1, and sometimes like in some situations. So I think it's actually okay to bring it in, just mostly based on how bad Teferi is in this matchup, not based on how good Veil. It's like I'm gonna replace the 3 for a 5 or 3 for a 6, and I think Veil is a 5 for a 6, which is usually not enough to separate it in. But I think here I will do it.
And that makes a ton of sense. And we see Mason agree and take out the Teferis and bring in the Veil Summers. Opening hand for these players, it seems like Mason's got a pretty nice one. Removal spell on 1, Renin 6 on 2 on the Mola 6, Leyline Binding Fable, snap it off.
Yeah, I mean, cannot ask for much more. Renan 6 takes a lot of weight on for this deck. I feel like it's a card that just makes all the hands better, Fable better, Lord of Mine. All these cards are so much better when you have Renan 6 that it makes sense when you're playing a creativity deck and you don't have Renan 6. If your hand is medium or whatever, you can be like just mulligan, because if you mulligan into a Renan hand, it's just much better.
I agree, and we see turn 1 Delighted Halfling on the side of Jim Davis. Gonna be met with a bolt here.
James Sand is very good, isn't it? Like it has Mana Dorks, 2, Wolf, Grease, Yawgmoth, and Call of Calling. Like
Yeah,
it
it's a
has all the
very
pieces. Yeah.
honestly, both of these players' hands are very powerful right now.
Yeah, I want to see. I
Losing
think
the
I'll see a cool
halfling,
game.
yeah, losing the halfling was a little bit unfortunate, but we got 2 copies of Wall of Roots here as Jim picks up the second one, Wall of Roots into Young Wolf, and to pass the turn.
Yeah, I mean, this is a turn where Mason needs to deploy the Fable because Otherwise, what's gonna do with Fables, right? This means like if Jim draws a land, he could just go like he could just go Yawgmoth, and then if Mason taps out, he can just go like God of Calling for one and just already start drawing a lot of cards and killing the goblins.
Oh yeah,
We'll see how it goes. Yeah.
I imagine we might see a Bowmaster here, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's definitely very open. Like if Jim draws a land, he has a lot of options. Like God of Calling gives a lot of options to players in this kind of situations. Like you obviously go for the combo, whatever, but like
Oh
he's
wow,
gonna go
it's
for
going
the
for Dryad
Arbor.
Arbor. Yeah. I've seen a lot of Yawgmoth lists cut the Dryad Arbor. What do you think about that? Would you prefer to keep Dryad Arbor in, or are you a Dryad Arbor hater?
I mean, I'm not a hater. I understand it's really unfortunate when you draw it because it's very bad when you actually draw the Arbor. But I think having access to this, having access to these situations where you can just core for zero is just too good. But also the fetch one, but I think core for zero is the most important part. So I mean, when I play Yawgmoth, I will never play without the Arbor. So I guess I'm not an Arbor hater.
We see Jim hovering over the Yawgmoth being like, dang, it's uncastable. Why isn't my Dryad Arbor a black-green land? This is unfortunate. I have green, 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 black. Well, I guess I'm going to have to do something else for my turn.
Yeah, but he still has some options. Like definitely Bowmasters is something that we might see here.
Yeah, maybe second Wall of Roots into Grist, or we could see Bowmaster instead. A lot of options on the side of Jim still, despite not being able to cast the Yawgmoth. We have no Twilight Mire in play.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of options, but it's very unclear to me which option is better. Like you can play Grist, sack the Wolf, kill the Red on 6, for example. You know that's probably one of the easiest one. You can also kill the token. Hmm.
And we'll see if Jim opts. Why, he sacks the Dryad Arbor, not the Young Wolf.
Wow. Okay.
That's a little bit puzzling to me.
Well, having the Wolf counters makes it better the turn you play Yawgmoth, but it doesn't matter that much because you can remove the counter. So probably I will have my instinct is to sack the Wolf to keep the mana, even though green mana actually he doesn't have a much use for it. But at least
It'd be very
like
helpful for another quarter calling off the top or something in the like,
yeah,
though.
exactly. Like it's just more resources. It's more pieces of cardboard. But now, I mean, if he had sacrificed the wolf, now Mason could be able to take out the wolf with bolt. So
That's
actually, this
true.
might be better for Jim. I mean, you can see like he's definitely an expert of his deck. So probably that's a common situation in the matchup where losing your combo piece to the bolt is actually not where you want to be.
Did Jim attack Ren and 6, or did he go upstairs? I didn't
He
quite
went
catch
Ren and
that.
6. Ren 6 was on 5.
Okay,
So he just
yeah.
went for Ren.
And we
This
see
looks bad
Ren
for Jim so far.
ping the
Green
Grist
source.
also.
Okay, that's very good for him. Even though Yawgmoth is obviously good, but Yawgmoth here doesn't exactly win the game. It's just like
Now,
a fine card.
2 copies of Leyline Binding in Mason's hand is going to contest that Yawgmoth quite heavily. I mean, Jim can draw a couple cards
Even
in
the bold,
response.
yeah, but even the bold on the any of the creatures if he wants to. I mean, I don't know if he does want probably right because Fable plus Fable might be enough to win this game if he just kills everything.
Yeah, maybe we see just like Bolt binding,
Like
binding on all the creatures.
binding the wolf, wall the wall, and then binding the Yawgmoth, and suddenly, you know, Jim is left with nothing. Like he doesn't even have a Yawgmoth, but even if he had a Yawgmoth, it's like, what's he gonna do with it?
We could also potentially see maybe like a Bolt on the Yawgmoth plus a Ren and 6 down tick.
Yeah,
It
but I
looks
think
like
he's going for this now. Like it's important playing as Yawgmoth to make sure the board is empty as you can. So
mhm.
he's electing to go for the binding on the Yawgmoth. Okay, that's a little bit tricky because you cannot do it now, but it's also obviously better to save a binding. Okay, well now he says he's
Now he's gonna do
got
it in
this opening.
response.
Yeah, yeah, definitely getting this opening to kill the Yawgmoth. I mean, look at this battlefield. Like what happened at the end is Jim lost one creature on Yawgmoth, so 2 cards for 2 removal spells, which is fine, and he gets 1 card out of it. That's good, but definitely not a winning, like, winning the game, straight winning the game situation for him. So the 2-for-1 here, still fairly behind, I will say.
Yeah, his board is kind of in shambles now after that exchange, and now he's got to work on building it back up, but also having to deal with both of these fables coming down, and we might see a little bit of reflection, copy reflection action,
Ooh,
Splinter Twin at home, if you will, but creativity off the top,
yeah,
plus
yeah,
creativity
it's gonna be
X2,
plus.
and
Get
I
some,
think we're going to game 3.
yeah, get some Archons, game 3, easy. If
Simple and
you're
clean.
Jim, and he's doing the fetching this fast, it's coming.
Yeah,
When
Jim's like
creativity is
right
coming, yeah,
click concede,
yeah, pretty much.
hovering right now. Just X equals 1,
X equal
not X
one.
equals 2.
Okay, that's. I mean, I don't even know which one is better because honestly, both just
Win the game.
win the game. Like, yeah,
6 of one, half a dozen of the other, and I think we're about to head to game 3 very shortly here.
yeah, yep. Mason Clark wins. Let's go to game 3. Velos Hammer certainly a little bit worse on the draw, but still better than Teferi, I guess.
Yeah, Teferi does not seem great, but neither do... I mean, the reprieves are... I guess they buy you time, so they're probably okay.
Yeah,
But
repeat, like, Jim needs to resolve a Yawgmoth, right? To win the game, like to be dominant in the game. So at some point he has to play this expensive card, even though he has a lot of mana dorks. Reprieving a 4 mana card is still fine. I mean, I
it's
think
a
it's better
decent
than the.
tempo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not great, of course, but creativity really has a lot of weak cards for the matchup. In exchange, obviously, they get like this super strong combo. So.
Yeah, obviously, like, Spell Pierce is completely blank for the most part, barring a Chord of Calling, but I don't think that you can really play into Spell Pierce. Like, you don't have to play into Spell Pierce if you're
How many
a
times
Yawgmoth
have you?
player.
How many times have you tried to spell Pierce agrees to MagicOnline?
Once.
Once
Never again
only.
after that. Never again after that. I learned my
Wow.
lesson. I was like, stern scoldings for life. Nice
Whoa,
1-1 you got on the
scolding card is
stack.
it? That's great. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a 1-1 on the stack, so you can actually stern scolding a grist. Stern scolding pretty much hits everything in the Yawgmoth list. From the
Wow.
Yawgmoth itself, the grist, the Orcish Bowmasters, Wall of Roots. It's kind of crazy against them.
That's true. I mean, I never thought of that card to be able to counter Grace, but it is. Yeah. All right. Thanks. Just so you know, if you're gonna beat someone with Yama, just put a lot of skull.
Play
In the
2 stern
sideboard.
scoldings in your sideboard. It'll do wonders. I
They
promise.
will. Yeah, they will get there. You know, it's Jandingo still off warranty.
Game
All right.
3.
Okay.
And we
Well,
see no lands on the side of Jim and a pretty okay
shuffle.
hand from Mason.
I mean, Mason's gonna be somewhat happy with the hand, right? Like it's obviously not ideal, not as good as the other hand, not red and six, but still bold. So making sure you don't die too early in the combo card.
I think I'd keep
Oh,
this if I were Mason.
yeah. I mean, I don't think it's a happy keep. It's like this kind of hands where you're like, well, I have to keep this hand, but it's it's not very good.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, maybe I like just turn for creativity and I accidentally win the game. But we do see a Thoughtseize on the side of Jim
Yeah.
Davis. So turn 1 Thoughtseize is probably going to snag that creativity and slow down Mason quite a bit. He's going to have to dig for another copy of the namesake card of the deck.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting because okay, let's say Jim is gonna Thoughtseize and get the creativity. Is he like going to play the orcs once he deploys his hand, going for pressure, more bodies for Yamath, or is he gonna hold them so he can actually counter the creativity? A creativity Mason might draw. I think that's not obvious, and let's see
I
how Jim plays this out because I actually don't know how
feel like
what's
my
best.
intuition, if I'm on the side of Jim, I'm down on cards already, so maybe you have to take the aggressive role because you're so behind on card advantage that you're probably not going to win the late game. Oh, you hate to
Ooh,
see it if you're Jim, because that's the red and 6 off the top. It's going to absolutely shut down all of these X1s that he's going to deploy. Although Pendlehaven might come in clutch to save 1 or 2 of these X1s.
yeah. Well, Jim is definitely going to play the turn two Masters. Well, the Mason had Grand 6 where you want it, right? Which is on the top of your deck, so you can cast it turn
Oh,
two.
yeah.
And it doesn't get thoughts. It's tough. Thoughts is.
You can't Thoughtseize the top of the deck.
Yeah, we're gonna see that this game. Grand 6. Actually, not as good as usually here because Mason is already a little bit flooded. Still gonna be great if he draws like Archons and such, but I mean,
Right in 6.
Mason will be better with a Fable here, probably.
+1 draw card.
Well, not draw a card anymore. Draw a card is a dangerous sentence in Modern now, so it's +1.
That's
Get an
true.
additional card to your hand.
Otherwise, imagine if it triggered Bowmaster, it'd be a lot worse of a card.
Yeah. All right. Well,
We're gonna see
this
the
Pen of Heaven is actually,
Pendlehaven.
like this Pen of Heaven is killing Ren. It's
Pretty good.
That's actually gonna change the game a little bit. I mean, this Ren just didn't do anything.
Bye-bye, Ren.
Pen of Heaven is actually, it's a good card. Also more
It's a lot of lands on the side of
lands.
Mason.
I mean, there's a Mason maybe should just kill at least the Orc now, so he closes some of the Court of Calling lines. He's
Back
gonna
to
go for it.
Mordor you go.
Yeah, I actually agree with this. Like, but Mason is in a bad position. He has nothing. He just lands.
Can't kill this Yawgmoth either.
Yeah. I mean, maybe he could have hold the bolt so he can double bolt the Yawgmoth. But this is a classic situation where it's very easy to play with the cards face up. You know, like if you're
Right.
Mason, you may be like, you know, I'm gonna play around Card of Calling, but then they have the Yawgmoth in their hand, and it's like, oh.
So we see Jim deploy the Takanuma, which is the utility land, instead of the fetch land, because he probably wants to fetch up Dryad Arbor to sacrifice it to the Yawgmoth and get additional cards later.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jim realizes like if Mason has like a binding or something, or you know, like also he doesn't have enough to win the game. So Arbor here can actually draw a card, but also remove a counter from the Wolf, so it's pretty good. And Takenuma doesn't really help that much if, you know, binding or even this Celestial Purge. Like if Yamot dies, Takenuma does not necessarily help there.
So Mason told me prior to this broadcast, he said that Celestial Purge, that's for you, Dingo. I'm bringing it in against your stupid scam deck. And we see it covered against Yawgmoth. It actually be quite potent at taking down the Yawgmoth also.
That's
So
pretty
Mason
good. That's a draw. Yeah.
accidentally metagames for Yawgmoth.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think this kind of pod play, I love it. Like, you know, all these mind games are this player, because you're not reading meta games, you know, like you're reading players. They're like, I think this player is gonna play this deck, or I think this player is gonna play this type of cards. I think that's, to me, that's very fun. You know, like thinking all this, I'm gonna play this card against this deck, or this opponent is gonna try to play this hate card against my deck, so I'm gonna hedge that way. This kind of mind games, I think it's a unique
it's
thing
great.
of this. Yeah, I think of this like pod league play. Like, all right, so Jim is again back on the trial for fair game, I will say. And Pendelhamen did another more damage. I wonder how much damage Pendelhamen is gonna deal this game. It's already 2 or 3, and
Yeah, I mean, insects become 2/3s. It's not oh, 2 insects, grist. It's a combo deck. It's absolutely busted. Combo grist and a grist. It's just too easy.
Yeah, another land for Mason. Just like has enough lands to cast an Archon already. Probably he's definitely not very happy with this amount of lands at this point, and yeah, I mean he's one card away of dying, right? Like this is Pendelhaven plus 5 power creatures, 6 damage, lethal next turn. I mean he has a dwarf to block, I guess, but then again, if he creativities now, then Jim can just sack a creature randomly and then just kill the Archon with the Grist, so it's not like great anymore.
Well, you know what we call this? We call this mediocre beats. In with everything. Pendelhaven, whatever gets blocked by a 1/1. And call it a day.
Pendelhaven is so good. I remember playing Infect years ago. Pendelhaven was so good against blockers because it's even much better than 1 damage. It's like, okay, the one you block, I'm gonna pump. So it doesn't really matter. Like you just cannot block 1/1. Like here, if he blocks with a dwarf, it's a chump block, which obviously not very appealing. Yeah, I mean, it could run on 6 also. I will say Pendelhaven actually was fairly good here. Just I'm not playing without Pendelhaven in the future.
Pendelhaven has been surprisingly impressive. How do you feel about Colony Garden as utility land in these Yawgmoth lists? Because I've seen a lot of them pop up with a couple copies of Colony Garden just to get extra creatures for quarter calling.
Yeah, I mean,
Do you like it?
yeah, I mean, I thought this Gracer Colony Garden, whatever it was, like one of these memes, like they are not very good or whatever. And then I started playing with it, and I was like, oh, it's actually good. Like you go Gracer into Garden, and suddenly your deck functions much better. You build Yawgmoth, convert it into an extra card. I think Garden was good. I think we cannot play too many, but I think it's more about the card for Yawgmoth than exactly Code of Color. Obviously both, but like the card from Yawgmoth and also making Grist easier to kill a creature, because sometimes the matches where you need to kill a creature are like Scam and Murtide, right? Those are the ones where you actually need
Yep.
it the most, and those are the matchups also where it's harder to have a creature around, but they're not gonna spend a Terminate on a 0/1. So
Yeah.
actually, I think makes it much better. Right, Fable,
Dwarven Mine,
probably
Fable.
too late. Right, this is lethal again. No, not lethal because the fetch.
How
No,
many creatures are in the graveyard? It's just 1, 2. So Grist only does 2 damage for right now. But maybe we get there with the Grist ult.
could be. I mean, if everything attacks, no, because the tokens are not going to the graveyard, so probably not lethal.
7. The Dryad Arbor dies. If the Young Wolf dies, the Ignoble's not going to die. So maybe an additional 5 points of damage from the Grist maximum. Plus 2
Yeah,
on
but
the table.
I think Dry Rubber and Golfin are going to die. I think the tokens are going to die. So
Yeah, agree. So probably not lethal this turn, but definitely next turn.
yeah, still attacking with all. Everyone that can attack should attack here. I think we're gonna say that, but I will say Mason is drawing life for creativities here.
Notably, if Grist was on 5 loyalty and you ulted it, then it would count itself, but it being at 6 means that it's still going to be on the table when the ultimate resolves, meaning 1 less point of damage going to Mason Clark's face.
Unfortunately. Well, then again, Goblin cannot really block very well here. I don't know what we're gonna see. 7 life. Ooh.
Mason
Well,
definitely has to tread carefully here. I mean, it's all onboard tricks at this point.
yeah, also Mason cannot play around anything. He's had to be like, okay, I hope like Jim Drill Land or like a hero, because he's not beating like Orchismo Masters or obviously like God of Calling Yawgmoth or whatever. All these cards are not beatable. Only lands are blank and blanks are beatable. But I think I'm trying to do the math a little bit, but it seems like Mason is going to be throwing life to an Archon. He will also like this. Okay, so he takes 3 damage.
3 damage from the Pendelhaven, and then the Young Wolf is not going to die. There's only 3 creatures in the yard.
So it's 2 damage.
Or,
So he can
sorry,
put
two
kill
creatures
more.
in the yard, my bad.
Yeah, he just kills the goblin. So this way, Mason has no tokens.
He's got no outs to top deck.
Well, yeah, because Archon. Yeah, maybe he could have log 1 less and keep 1 token alive. Probably going to 3 because Grease deals 2 damage, but probably ultimately he will probably lose the game anyway. I will say.
2 lands.
Yeah,
Take
discard
the
2
bin.
lands. He needs to
Take the
draw
Dwarven Mine.
creativity. And
Just a Fable.
yeah, just the
And
Fable, not
that's
enough.
not going to be good enough. And I think we're going to see Jim Davis take down Mason Clark here in our second match of this Modern Super League.
With the beatdowns, huh? Again, the John Wolf beatdowns.
Yeah, lo-fi beats. It's like looking at a radio station right now.
Even though, like, reality though is like Greece won the game, right? Like Greece was strong enough to actually deal enough damage to threaten the game. That's how good the card is.